This is TNC Movie Nights, and we just finished watching Alex's favorite movie, Dolittle. And Mike, I want you to start. I want you to start talking about this movie, and then I'll take it, and then Alex will finish.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, it was horrible. That was probably one of the worst, if not the worst movie I've ever seen. For a couple different reasons. One, I felt like it was just trying to hurry itself up at times just to get to exciting parts. Number two, I had to constantly remind myself what they were doing because to me it was that boring, that awful, and that's just the top ideas off my head on why this was horrible. Alex, care to add on to that at all?
Oh no, I've seen this before. Let's let Brandon give his thoughts. Everyone knows how I feel about this movie.
So this feels really weird to say, and I understand that you will disagree with me, but the movie needed to be longer. Because, as Mike said, it felt rushed. It felt like they were kind of just skipping through important details. They could have really given us better character development with the main, child that was with Robert Downey Jr.'s character of Dolittle throughout the movie. They really should have given us more of that. Maybe introduce the Queen before she's just laying in a coma. So there is a bit to the movie that kind of really needed to be explained. But at the same time, the movie was extremely boring because there were so many parts that they really weren't doing a whole lot. They were kind of just traveling. And I know that sounds okay because you might think of a movie like Lord of the Rings, where for 3 movies, they're traveling. But a lot of stuff happens while they're traveling. This movie, they make it to a castle where the Queen is, get on a boat, and then they get to an island, and that's pretty much it.
You thought I was joking when I said nothing happens. It's not a movie.
Yeah. So it was definitely, those parts were pretty bad. It was very slow, dragged on for a bit. I probably looked 3-4 times on how long the movie was through because I was like, wow, this has got to be getting close. Or this is not even close to over. And it was just kind of this weird middle ground the whole time. I was like, oh, wow, there's 30 minutes left. They haven't given us a whole lot, but they have to wrap it up soon. It's confusing, but okay. I do have to say this was... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the whole time thing, it was, an hour, 40 minutes, hour and 42 minutes, something like that? It felt like 3 hours. It felt like... the first 5 minutes was awesome. That animation style we were talking about, I loved that. If the whole movie was like that, I would have preferred that. But as soon as 10 minutes hit, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be painful.
See, it's funny because I'm on the other side of it. The first 20 minutes, 30 minutes for me, I really was enjoying the movie. I was really having
that celery joke.
Oh my goodness! I'll definitely leave a couple of those in the full episode. But they killed me with 1 or 2 jokes in this movie, and I was almost crying laughing. So I definitely can't say for myself that this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, just on the fact that there were a couple moments where I loved the parts of the movie. That being said, it was not a good movie. It's a very bad movie. It really is. Couple goofy, funny moments. The characters in the movie are actually kind of okay, except for Doolittle's weird accent. There's no characters I'm like, wow, this character's just... I get him off the screen. The villain character I thought was decent. There's a weird Alcatraz island, and the leader of that island that happened to be Doolittle's wife's dad. Cool character. I really liked him. Anytime he was on screen, really enjoyed him. I thought the kid was actually pretty decent. They just needed to kind of go a little bit more in detail on why and how he can talk to animals and stuff. Because there's a lot of the movie that leaves you being like, okay, but why? And with it being a bad movie, you kind of just want to be like, it's because it's stupid is why. And they really could have done a better job of explaining a lot of parts of the movie when the movie was so boring for a lot of it. So it was really confusing that you're asking so many questions, but they just left you with nothing for about a good 50 minutes of that movie of just literally nothing happening. So.
Yeah, because nothing happens. Because it's not a real movie. Nothing happens. And then a parrot tells you about stuff that happens in a castle. And then a lot more nothing happens. And then he shoves a leak up a dragon's butt. And it farts. And then they take out the bagpipes. And then they go home. That's it. That's it.
I know one thing that we were able to agree on that was done very well in the movie was the communication between animals and humans, on how they were able to flip back and forth very, very smoothly with the cameras.
That part was good. The
Yes.
whole idea of it, totally full of like plot holes.
Yeah.
The fact that like they establish, oh, okay, so he is speaking their language and he understands their language, but then they put him around animals that he's never been around, and he speaks their language. Like, how are you talking to a dragon? And then you can kind of like, maybe he studied him, maybe he this, maybe he that, whatever. I'd be okay with that if they didn't also do it with the kid, because he was on the boat for like 2 days and he's speaking polar bear and monkey and goose and gorilla and everything. And then you're like, okay, I'm trying to justify things. It's like, okay, there's a lot of time where they're just waiting around, I guess. Immersion is the best way to learn a new language. Don't buy it, but I'll let it slide. And then he's talking to a dragonfly. And you're just like, how? Dragonfly wasn't on that boat. Ants weren't on that boat. Dragon wasn't on that boat. But you can talk to everything now. And then later they show him studying the Peacock book and practicing, because you need to practice because you're speaking their language. Except when they want to, I guess. I don't know. It sucks.
It's really funny because they could have taken out a couple parts of the movie and it would have made sense. Because to me, almost the entire movie, I was, oh, okay, they're just speaking animal. He's not speaking giraffe, and he's not speaking elephant and then polar bear. They're just speaking animal. But then they had to mention, oh my, he can speak dragon? When you put a line like that there's different animal languages, because literally up until that point, they don't mention speaking elephant and speaking bear, and it's just he's speaking to animals, and I was able to accept that the entire movie until they said he can speak dragon, because then it's like, okay, so there are different languages. How does he know all these? How at that point then I was like, why does the kid know all this? Because for me, I was, as I mentioned when we were watching the movie, I just said, okay, he's just you're chosen or you're accepted or however you're worthy to speak to animals, and then you kind of just can understand animals, not dragon, deer, and so on. Like,
and even that's a stretch. Like I struggle being like, I hear that and I want to go, yeah, but I mean, like I want to but that to death. But if I'm not being an ass, I could be like, you know what? That's an interesting way to think about it. Maybe that was what they were going for, and we as the viewers accept the reality that they present to us. But then, like you said, they just completely contradict all of that.
Yep.
Everything.
In just the last 15 minutes.
Right? Every way you try to explain this movie away, it contradicts itself because it's a terrible movie. It's the worst movie ever made.
On a positive note about this movie, I found throughout watching, the story was just awful. It was a dumpster fire thrown into a volcano. But the acting itself wasn't bad in my opinion.
Yeah.
RDJ, he wasn't terrible. Mm-hmm. No voice actor was like, I didn't feel like it was forced obscenely. It wasn't, Like got it in the first take. All right, let's go. It wasn't awful. The acting wasn't awful. It was like a C.
Yeah.
That's
I'd give
fair. Especially when you really consider the fact that this genuinely is a children's movie. Like, this was
Right.
made. And so it's like, okay, yeah, you can get away with that. And, oh my God, I swear. I'm actually really, really happy that you guys don't like this movie because it makes me feel so sane because we left that theater, and I was not exaggerating. When that dragon was farting, there were just whole families cackling, standing up, cheering. Like, it was like their country just won an Olympic gold medal and we were at the watch party. It was just like everyone in the family, everyone was there. They were cheering on that one person. And then they were just like, we won gold. And it was just from a dragon farting. And you're like, what is going on here? And then they did it again. Just in case you didn't catch it the first time, we're going to put the leak back up the dragon's butt. Oh, what a twist this time. It's not armor, it's freaking bagpipes. Because
That's what dragons eat.
The funny thing with the movie is the really bad portions of it, the things that ruined moments, was because they did it too many times. Like, my favorite joke of the whole movie was there's a moment where they say like scapula or whatever they've said for a medical term, and they just give him like a piece of lettuce, and that killed me. It was so funny. And then they did it again, and it was so funny. But then they did it a third time. And then they did it a fourth time. The fifth time they did it, if they would have taken out the third and the fourth time, because it was pretty much, they were doing a surgery, they needed it, they brought up the joke, funny. They were packing, needed the item, made the joke, it was funny. Third and fourth time made no sense for the joke at all. But the fifth time, if they would have been 1, 2, like, oh, that was funny in the first 20 minutes, and then brought it back at the end, I would have lost my everything for that. I would have been like, Alex, you're stupid. That was the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life. If they just take out, like, and just like what Mike was saying, like, they just, what Alex was saying is, like, they did the fart thing twice. The first time I was like, haha. And then they did it again.
Is stupid, but I can see how a 6-year-old would laugh.
Yeah, and then they did it again. I'm like, okay, come on. Like, we didn't need that twice. So
we didn't need that once.
Yeah, it's just funny because a lot of movies usually are really bad because they don't give you enough, because it feels like it's skipping all over the place and they're not doing enough. This one was, they did it too many times. They kept leaning on the jokes at points that were funny, but then they kept doing it. So
I think that's the big thing with this movie is that, like,
it was a joke the whole hour and 40 minutes. Yeah,
but it was awful, right? But movies are bad a lot, and then you forget about them, and then you're like, oh my God, I saw that. Do you remember that? And you go, God, that movie sucked. And you forget, like Lucy. We talked about.
I was just about to say Lucy.
I hate Lucy. It was awful. It made me so mad. And then I left, and then I forgot about it until I read it on another list, and I was like, oh my God, I hated that movie. This movie, it doesn't let you forget it because it does everything wrong while also being a bad movie. So you're like, okay, you suck, but it's almost like you're trying to suck on purpose. Like, you knew the right way to do this, and then you chose not to. In every aspect of it. So you're just like, I hate you, and I hate you because it seems like you're doing this on purpose, and I hate you because I shouldn't hate you, because it's really easy to make this movie not the worst movie ever, and they just didn't do it ever. Like, every chance they had to make this movie better than the worst movie ever made, they just went, no thanks, we'll just do it the worst way ever. And you're just like, why just don't. It's really hard to write a really good movie. It's not that hard to write a normal bad movie. It's really hard to write the worst movie ever. So that's why I hate it. And that's why it's my least favorite movie ever made.
Now, is there something you want to say about Dolittle? Like, Dolittle is, I don't know.
Awful? That's the that is honestly the first word that comes to mind. It's awful for me.
I think it might be the worst movie ever made.
But Alex, question for you: did you notice anything different, or is there any?
Oh yeah, I forgot about the bagpipes. That was that was a fun watch through the second time. I don't know how I forgot about the bagpipes. I think I tried to repress that memory. Because I remember the farting, I remember the armor, and I remember them like getting hit with something. And even looking back, I remember talking about how like they got hit with the armor. They didn't get hit with the armor. He threw it aside and then he shoved the leak up her butt, which I also forgot about. I thought he just went barehanded in there. Leak, because reasons. Yeah, and then the bagpipes. That was interesting.
Yeah. I wish, because I think, Alex, you commented on it. My face when there was just a dragon just hanging out. What? There's just a dragon now. They exist.
I wish they would have gone like way over the top with stuff like that. Like the dragon was like in the cave, like chilling back with a glass of wine. Like I wish that's how over the top stupid this movie was, because then at the end of the day, I could have accepted everything, being like, okay, this movie is aware and knows it's terrible. Let's just be as dumb as we can.
Okay.
Exactly. You could be the worst movie ever made, and then you just sprinkle on a little self-awareness, and you're like, oh my god, this is the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah.
That self-awareness is key. That's what turns stupid crap like The Meg into fun and dumb and watchable.
Yeah.
You watch that movie and you're like, man, that sucked, but that was fun and that was dumb and now it's over. Because they know it's fun and dumb.
Yeah.
And they're just like, check us out, we're fun, we're dumb, watch us. And you're like, all right. But then you just like, you watch this and they're just like, and you're like, no, 1,000 times no. 1,000,000 times. Stop everything you're doing and shut up because you didn't do it. Just go away now forever. Don't ever make movies again. All of you, forever. Stop. But if you just had like a little self-awareness and they're like, it sucks, right? And you're like, I know, but it's fun.
I totally agree there. I think that's enough for Alex. I think he needs a breather and a year's worth of vacation for having to talk about this movie one last time. But Mike, any final statements about this movie?
If you want to watch one of the worst movies ever made and have an hour and 40 minutes to do nothing with your life, I'd recommend this movie. Other than that, don't watch this movie.
That's her. I
hit the nail on the head about the title. It did do very little.
Yeah. It definitely makes me.
This guy.
It definitely makes me sad for how much I loved the original Dr. Dolittle, and then they tried to do a weird reboot for it and kind of just ruined everything with it. As they say, there's a couple sparing moments that you'll chuckle at. They're funny, but as a whole, I would never recommend really watch this. I'll be honest, not gonna crack my top 5 least favorite movies, but it's in the top 10. It would definitely be in the top 10. So yeah, that's been another episode of TNC Movie Nights, reviewing Dolittle. I'm so sorry, Alex. It's been a fun time. If you're watching the ending review, we do have the full episode of us watching it, of course, clipped up together, the best moments. Thank you so much for coming by. If you want to follow us on all of our social media, go to thenerdchambers.com. That's where you can find all of our social media, the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Check us out on TikTok as well. We post 1 or 2 videos usually a week on there. Check out the merch shop. Appreciate a lot. That is shop.spreadshirt/thenerdchambers, supporting all our wonderful merch. And yeah, it's been a fun week. And of course, next month we'll be doing Elf. It's going to be one hell of a ride. I'm not excited. Thank everyone for stopping by. It's been a fun time. I'm glad we got to have Mike on here again. Hopefully we can have you on, a little more. A little more would be fun.
Absolutely, so. Yeah. It's always a real fun time hanging out with you guys doing this. So can't wait for more.
Awesome. All right. Alex, send us home.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you later. I'm Alex. I think that's Mike, and I think that's Brandon. You know our faces. You know our names. We'll see you guys later.